Good morning. This is Dennis Falloon again. I hope everybody had a good holiday time and a good New Year's. And hopefully you're a little warmer than I am. I'm up in Tallahassee, and it was 20 degrees last night, about 18, so it's kind of chilly. So still cold right now. And just to remind everybody, I am the District 7 Safety Academy Coordinator, and I do work with District 7 as a consultant, safety consultant. And I'd like to welcome you to the webinar today on safety projects and the local agency program. This will be presented today by Lawrence Taylor, who is part of the local public agency solutions company, and he's also a consultant to the District 7 Safety Office. I'm going to kind of go into my little introduction spiel. And as you can see, this is the District 7 Local Agency Traffic Safety Academy. And the Academy is here to provide information regarding safety-related issues to enhance your local agency programs. And it began, the first one was October 23rd. And this first series of topics will go through to January 29th. And they run between an hour and 2 hours. And the length of time usually is geared to whether there's a number of questions or the complexity of the topic. And here is a website that you can go to register for the course, and you get notices on this also. And also to check out previous webinars and additional information, you can go to this safetyofficesummit.org. Anthony, I don't know if this is the right one that got loaded or sent to you. Anyway, today is January 8th, and it'll be the safety projects and the local agency program, LAP. And this is my contact information, so if you have any questions, please let me know. With that, I want to turn this over to Lawrence Taylor and let him go ahead and proceed with his presentation.
Thank you, Dennis. Good morning and Happy New Year, everyone. Again, my name is Lawrence Taylor. I am now serving as a consultant to the District 7 Safety and LAP office. I function here as the LAP project manager, LAP safety project manager for District 7. I have in the room with me a couple of one of my former employees, Mr. Steve Love, who is the District 7 LAP project manager, and Ms. Kristen Oliver, who's a consultant assisting Steve, and we also have Iris Riggs here, who's a consultant assisting the District 7 safety team. First of all, this is the workshop series that Dennis just showed just a moment ago. And I wanted to do a little recap of the previous Safety Academy sessions. Of course, we've covered the Highway Safety Evaluation and the Highway Safety Manual. We've also presented crash reduction factors, the benefit cost ratios, and the net present value calculations that provide the quantifiable data that's necessary to receive the federal safety dollars. We have described the HSIP application process, the available safety funding categories, requirements, and conditions, and we've provided information to assist with the feasibility determination of approved safety projects. And now, today's session was originally described as the District 7 Safety Projects and the Local Agency Program, which is commonly referred to as LAP. But I decided to throw in a bit more detail and expand the title to Implementation of Vetted Safety Projects through Design, Build, Push Button, Material Purchase, and LAP. Let's start off with the safety project approval process. Once your safety project is approved, you will be notified accordingly by the District 7 Safety Programs Manager, Mr. David Skrlunas. David is on vacation today, and Peter Shue is running a little late. He'll be in later. But the letter that David sends out will include the decision that we've made and the reasons for it. The letter will also detail the allocated funding amount for the improvement which the local agency has requested, and it may or may not fully fund that project. If the project is not fully funded, it may become the local agency's responsibility to cover the funding deficit. The letter may also include recommendations for alternative remedies that will improve the reviewed safety project issue, even if the application is denied. Also, if the project is approved, we may provide recommendations that will more greatly improve and strengthen the quality of the safety strategy. The project delivery method would also be included, and that would be either through design, build, push button, LAP, or material request. And you'll also be provided contact information for the appropriate District 7 team member. With regards to contact and coordination, the need for local coordination with the District 7 safety staff cannot be emphasized strongly enough. This is something that can make or break a project. Each project delivery method has its own set of requirements and needs. So we must all be reading from the same sheet of music. So we will try to make sure that we stay in touch with the local agency, and we ask that the local agency does the same. Now, with regards to the safety funding availability, we do not have a bottomless pot of money. We've got a limited amount of money. So what we do is we basically analyze the funding level requirements that will be needed, and we try to mesh that with the local delivery schedule for the project. Now, if that's especially true if the chosen delivery method is LAP. Now, if design, build, push button, or material purchase is the chosen strategy, the effort will be coordinated with the local agency, and it's a whole lot simpler. You know, we will examine our safety projects and fund safety budget and fund projects based on the availability of our safety dollars. The large dollar projects may not be totally funded due to safety funding level constraints. However, we'll do the best we can. We'll work with the local agency, but there is a possibility that the local agency will need to come up with some money of its own. The local agency may need to, say, design the project themselves, and we pick up the construction costs, or there are a number of ways that the desired safety improvement can happen, and we will assist you as best we can. Please always be mindful of the need to have a reasonable and achievable project production schedule. You must also realize that design and right-of-way acquisition phases are considered to last at least 1 year. Excuse me. Now, if the project will be implemented through the District 7 design, build, push button methodology, please be advised that DBPB, as we affectionately call it, is used for fast response design and construction of transportation improvements utilizing safety funds. The improvements have included, DBPB is a delivery method. It's not necessarily a funding mechanism. Now, the District 7 Safety Office will select the design, build, push button projects based on estimated cost and complexity. And again, this delivery method is basically a fast response, quick and easy type improvement, and it can be utilized on or off the state highway system. Some of the design, build, push button project types that we've constructed and have programmed include the audible vibratory pavement markings, and that seems to be really growing in popularity, and that's great for eliminating or reducing lane departures. We've done traffic signal enhancements. We've added pedestrian amenities. We've added bicycle safety features. Street lighting is another type of project that can be done under the design, build, push button. We've done intersection improvements, and there's quite a demand for high-emphasis crosswalks as well. Now, we also implement some relatively simple improvements through the use of our material purchases. Now, in those situations, the District 7 Safety Office will do an informal solicitation of the local agencies. The local agencies can go through the application process by visiting our District 7 Safety Summit website, and I've listed the website address here. You can go in, it's pretty user-friendly, and if you have any questions, you can call District 7 Safety Office here, and we can guide you through it. But basically, the local agency will submit an application online, and we will review the application. And if your application is approved for safety for equipment purchases, then we will make the purchase, and we typically purchase equipment twice a year. The basic conditions include that the local agency accepts the inventory and the maintenance responsibility, and the maintenance responsibility is very important. And then once we've turned the materials over to the local agency can install and construct the safety improvement. Some of the material purchases that we've done over the years, you can see listed here on this slide. As you can see, countdown pedestrian signals. We've spent approximately $2 million in the district over the last 2 or 3 years. We've spent $1 million on school flashers, school speed feedback signs. We've spent $1.2 million and provided that equipment to the local agencies. We've spent $400,000 on bright sticks, $300,000 on thermal marking material, and $500,000 for enforcement lights. Oops. Now, another type of project that we've got is the local force account. That will come under LAP, if LAP is the chosen delivery method. But force account basically is a situation where the local agency can use their own staff to construct a project. It's typically used on low-cost projects. Large dollar contracts or large dollar projects should not, well, they should be competitively bid and are not good for use with local force account. The local agency must have sufficient staff and resources to be able to move forward with the project. And I know that's difficult in this day and age because many of the local agencies have gone through downsizing, they've lost positions, they've had turnover, and they may simply not have sufficient staff to go ahead and do the improvement using their own forces. And you cannot mix force account with a contract. They've got to be separate. It's an either-or situation. Now, if the local agency desires to go the local force account route, they must submit a finding of cost effectiveness and obtain FDOT approval. Now, the finding of cost effectiveness is basically a comparison that shows that it's more economically feasible to use their own staff instead of putting the project out to bid and follow the traditional design, bid, build, or other federal highway approved methodology. But that finding of cost effectiveness must be submitted to the department for approval. And now, if you do choose to go that route, the Davis-Bacon wage rates will not apply. And also, when it gets to the LAP checklist process that will be covered later, many of the items on that the LAP construction checklist will no longer be applicable because there is no contract. All local agency staff that will be working on the project, their salaries can be reimbursed. Now, the requirement here is that we've done in the past is that we've asked the local agency to submit from their personnel system the employee's name and the salary rate that to be reimbursed. This methodology has been used several times here in District 7, including a couple of safety projects several years ago. And we are also currently working with the City of St. Pete to implement a safety lap force account intersection improvement project. So if the local agency has sufficient staff and resources, this is a good mechanism to deliver a project. Now we're moving on to LAP. And this is something that's near and dear to me. I served as the District 7 LAP administrator for almost 15 years before retiring. And LAP was authorized under ICE-T, as we affectionately called it, in 1991. And under this provision, Law 102-240, the state DOTs could delegate authority to qualified local agencies to spend federal funds. Now, the department can delegate the project to delegate the authority to the local agency, but we are still ultimately responsible. And that's why we have the LAP manual. You still must follow all of the applicable state and federal requirements. Now, the Florida, our program, we call it LAP, Local Agency Program. But since this, everything is rooted in CFR, the Code of Federal Regulation, it mentions local public agencies as opposed to LAP. And the state of Florida's program was patterned after Washington State's program. Now, our initial view of LAP was one that, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it was viewed as a just give them the money program in the beginning. And it was much easier to follow than what we have now, because all of the federal requirements were not being adhered to. And most of the local agencies and DOT loved it. But that's only the beginning of the story there. And here in part 2, incurring the wrath of FHWA, as I called it. And as you can see, I repeated initial view of LAP from the previous slide, because that's what got us in trouble. You know, that's to emphasize our collective initial view of LAP incurred the wrath of Federal Highway, as we did treat the program as a just give them the money venture. The districts provided little or no oversight, and the same can be said of Central Office and Federal Highway. But this all changed in July of 2005, when the Florida Division Office of Federal Highway conducted its first real review of LAP. And the results were surprising and unappreciated. Federal Highway reviewed the construction contracts from 21 LAP agencies from around the state, 21 LAP projects from around the state, and determined that none of them met the minimum federal requirement. Federal Highway's response was a moratorium on LAP construction projects where we had not yet executed a construction contract. And again, that was a statewide moratorium. And that Federal Highway's action led to the enhancement of the program, and it now more closely resembles the federal process with regards to roadway construction contracting. The enhanced process resulted in a considerable amount of district oversight on LAP projects, excuse me, although varying degrees of oversight may have already been in place in the individual district. However, there has been a marked increase in the amount of oversight from Central Office and Federal Highway. Part 3 of LAP history, escaping LAP jail. For those of you that are actively involved in LAP and have completed or started a LAP project since 2000, probably since the beginning of 2006, you're familiar with the LAP administrative and construction checklist. And this process led to a review of the local agency draft bid documents, which, while it was always included in the original LAP manual that the local agency would submit a draft bid document for DOT review, well, actually, the LAP manual read that the local agency would submit an executed copy of the contract, and there was no requirement that the draft document would be reviewed by the department prior to advertising. And this led to a number of problems. It also led to an update of the lap manual, and the manual that we have today is much streamlined from that original manual. But there are safeguards in place to make sure that all of the federal requirements are there and can be seen by everyone in that manual and adhered to. It also resulted in improved and increased frequency review of lap projects, which we'll touch on a little later. Lap certification. Lap certification is a privilege. It's not a right. It is a privilege that's reserved for qualified local agencies, and the opportunity to expend the federal funds is granted based on local staff quality and quantity. If in District 7 we utilized a lap certification review team. If a local agency requested lap certification, I as lap administrator would send the request out to our various resident experts. It would go to the design office, the PD&E office, right-of-way, construction, any of our offices that would stand guard and make sure that the requirements of the program were being met. We could certify local agencies in planning, design, consultant selection, bid and award, and construction administration. Now, in the areas of environmental documentation, PD&E, and right-of-way, we can pre-qualify an agency, but we are held responsible and accountable to Federal Highway, and only the department can forward those documents to Federal Highway. So it's more of a partnership in those two areas, PD&E and right-of-way. Now, the FDOT pre-qualified consultants are required if the projects are on the state highway system, and also there are varying degrees of lap certification. We can issue a blanket certification where we feel that the local agency has the quantity, quality, and experience amongst their staff to carry out all of the certification areas listed above. Now, there were instances where, particularly with regards to PD&E and right-of-way, where we certified an agency, basically gave them full certification, but it was with the caveat that it was approved with the use of FDOT pre-qualified consultants. And here is a flow chart that takes you through the lap certification process. Now, one thing that I hadn't mentioned before is that there is a module online at the state lap website where the local agency can take an online lap certification course. And that is it is required that the local agency not only take that course, but they've got to pass it prior to being able to be certified. And the local agency would then submit the lap certification agreement that for district review and approval. But again, all of that is contingent upon the local agency passing the course, and it's a relatively simple course. And of course, it's open book. You can look in your manual. You can see what needs to be done. You can take the course, and once you've passed the course, you complete your application and you submit it to the district for approval. And we can issue either full certification or blanket certification, or we can issue a project certification or a risk-based dollar limit certification where the local agency could only construct lap projects beneath a certain threshold. Now, the main thing to remember here also is that the local agency must request they must submit a lap request letter for each and every project. Just because you have blanket certification, it's not automatic. It does not mean that you will be allowed to do a certain project. You still have to make that individual project request. Recertification and decertification. Now, these are fairly recent developments because the original LAP manual stated that an agency was certified until that certification was rescinded by either the department or the local agency. But now, due to significant staff turnover and also based on the local agency's performance, we are required to recertify agency every 3 years now. There are some agencies that haven't been active in the LAP game for 3 years. Well, they need to be recertified. And we also have a mechanism in place now to decertify a local agency if their performance on LAP projects has not been satisfactory. And if there is a failure to recertify, then we can decertify that agency. And a recent discussion with a local, with a district LAP administrator in another district indicated that one of their local agencies has decided that they didn't use LAP often enough to want to go through the recertification process. So they declined until such time that they had a project that they wanted to do as LAP, and then they would, submit for recertification. Now, the other part to this recertification and decertification would be the quality assurance reviews and audit findings. That all helps to form the basis of the local agency report card. Project selection. Any project in the work program can become a LAP project. And again, the LAP request letter would be needed from the locals, and it would be addressed to the LAP administrator. Now, that LAP request letter needs to come from someone who has the authority at the local level to instigate such an action. It should not come from the project manager level. It needs to come from someone in administration, county or city administration that has the authority to actually make a commitment. And of course, the district has to concur that the project should be done under LAP. The local agency must also have a firm commitment to meet the project schedule. And again, this is very important because if the local agency does not adhere to the project schedule, not only does the department, the district, receive a black eye behind the project not being completed, because any project that's shown in our work program is the department's commitment to the public that we're going to do this improvement. It no longer matters whether or not the project is a LAP project. Once upon a time, we were able to say, well, the city did not do what it needed to do, and that would get us off the hook. That doesn't work anymore because it's still a DOT commitment, even if it's being carried out, even if the project is to be carried out by the local agency. To LAP or not to LAP? Projects that are on the interstate or impacting the interstate, a definite no. That's not something that Federal Highway wants to see. That's not something that the districts basically want to see. Excuse me again. Projects on the state highway system or that impact the state highway system, that's a maybe. It depends on the circumstances and is decided on a case-by-case basis. But as a rule of thumb, District 7 policy was that we would not allow local agencies to do LAP projects on the state highway system, but as you'll see in the upcoming slides, there have been some exceptions. We also have major or critical projects. Major projects, critical projects, it could be because of the dollar amount. Any project with a construction value greater than $10 million is considered a critical project. Bridge projects are considered critical projects. Culvert projects are considered critical projects, even though the construction of a big box culvert could be, if a box culvert is constructed during a road reconstruction project, then that box culvert construction could be considered a critical element. And when it comes to critical projects, the specifications that are in place are full DOT specs. So again, that'll be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Now, projects of a local interest are definitely projects that we would consider to be done under the LAP program. Now, as I mentioned earlier, District 7 owned system projects, there have been a few. The City of St. Petersburg, we entered into LAP agreement with the City of St. Petersburg to do several projects. We had 3 resurfacing projects in the area of downtown St. Pete years ago. We had just started into the design process when we met with the City of St. Pete, and they wanted to underground utilities in the same areas where we intended to do the 3R projects. And actually, the city's project was a year ahead of our resurfacing, and it simply did not make sense to tear up the roadway twice. So the city agreed to delay their project, and we agreed to provide the funding that we were going to use to resurface the roadways to the city so that they could do it all in a LAP project. And it worked. It worked great. We've also done a project that we call the Links LAP Utility Coordination with the City of Tampa. And that Links area is the area out near, for those of you that are familiar with Tampa, it's out near Tampa International Airport and State Road 60 that leaves Tampa heading over to Clearwater, and also the Veterans Expressway. It's a major junction. It was a major project, and we were able to get that one done. We also did a project, we teamed with Pinellas County to do a project on State Road 699 Gulf Boulevard. Again, it was a DOT 3R project, and Pinellas County wanted to underground utilities and do some other things in the area. And so we agreed, again, it made sense to do the project as a LAP project and let the county do it. Now, the monkey wrench that was thrown in all of this was Pinellas County wanted to use the construction manager at risk project delivery methodology. And some DOT staff had already agreed to allow Pinellas County to do it without really knowing the ramifications of their commitment. And the result of that was that this State Road 699 project, Gulf Boulevard, it became the first federally funded traditional roadway project in the country. There was lots of scrutiny, and at that time I was a DOT employee. I received phone calls from the state of Arizona, Kentucky, and a couple of other states who were interested in using this methodology because at that time it was not an approved methodology by Federal Highway. And the end results was fantastic because we were able to pull it off. It was not without hiccups. It took a lot of effort on everyone's part, but we were able to pull it off. Now, with regards to major and critical projects, we've done several large dollar projects. Bullet number 1 there, 40th Street reconstruction. 40th Street and McKinley Drive is the roadway that's right outside of our DOT office. And the city of Tampa reconstructed about, I believe it's like 3 miles, all the way from Hillsborough Avenue on the south to Fowler Avenue on the north. And the total bill for that project was $106 million. And to date, I believe that is still the largest LAP project in the state to this date. We also have a project that's under construction right now, County Road 581, Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. That's a reconstruction project being done by Hillsborough County. And by the time all of the dust settles on that one, the estimated cost will be up around $118 million. Now, these numbers include design, construction, and right-of-way acquisition, all of which are reimbursable through LAP. Now, just to throw in a little different wrinkle and a caution, right-of-way acquisition is not something that's done with safety funds, basically due to the limited amount of safety dollars that are available. So if a local agency has right-of-way needs, and this will be touched on a little bit later, if a local agency has right-of-way needs for the project, then they will need to fund that right-of-way acquisition with their own money, and we can pitch in with design and or construction, or maybe just construction. But those details will be worked out between the local agency and the District 7 safety team. We also had a bridge replacement project, Bel Air Causeway Bridge, $68 million, again with Pinellas County, and the City of Treasure Island, a $50 million bridge replacement project with that city. But of course, here today, we're here to talk about, what I've got shown here is typical LAP project types. Of course, we've got projects that are called, well, formerly called enhancement, now called transportation alternatives projects. We also had earmarks. Earmarks appear to be a thing of the past, but earmarks occurred when congressmen would include money for projects in their specific area in the budget, and the money would come about that way. We also have MPO prioritized projects. Now, if the MPO prioritizes a project, it can be either through the TA program, or it could be through their reconstruction program, whereby we add lanes and improve facilities. We can also do emergency response projects through LAP. We had the federal discretionary funding programs, LAP projects, and we could also do state resurfacing projects through LAP. But again, today, excuse me, our emphasis will be on safety projects. Now, in District 7, we've done a variety of safety projects, and here we have some of the types of projects listed. We've done traffic signal projects. We've installed traffic signals at intersections. We've done a variety of intersection improvements. We've done highway lighting projects. We've done safe routes to school projects. We've done runoff road projects. We've modified medians on several projects, and we've even had one rail crossing closure project. Then that project is not yet programmed in our work program, but we're working on that with the city of Oldsmar right now. And again, looking at the types of projects, we've had several safety LAP success stories. We've successfully completed 14 safe routes to school projects. We've completed 2 runoff road projects. We've done 3 projects that were median opening projects, where we reconstructed median openings or closed median openings. We've done a traffic signal project. We've done 2 roadway construction projects. Now, the 40th Street project with the City of Tampa that I mentioned earlier, an intersection improvement qualified for safety dollars, and $1 million of safety money went into that project. We also have the Fletcher Avenue safety project, which is up near the University of South Florida. And it's got lots of pedestrians, high volume traffic, and it's within a constrained right-of-way, but we managed to provide $3 million to Hillsborough County to reconstruct that roadway. We have other ways to assist the local agency in carrying out their local infrastructure safety needs. Through LAP, we've funneled out $8.65 million over the last 3 years. Now, some of that money has gone for design, some for construction, and along with construction comes a mandate to do the CEI and material testing. That all can be paid for under the LAP program. We've also, as I noted in my earlier in this presentation and the previous presentation that I did in early December, the project management costs incurred by the local agency, they are also reimbursable. not the entire amount of the project. If you hire a contractor, you know, we can reimburse you for your project management costs. And typically, we look to limit that project management reimbursement to about 10% of the total construction costs. Here in District 7, we have a district-wide safety engineering contract that's worth about $1 million a year. And with this contract, we've been able to assist the local agencies with designing off-system improvements. We've been able to either, to put one of our safety engineering teams, a member of our safety engineering team, in the local agency's office to assist with safety-related engineering needs. District 7 has also provided safety and LAP-related training to local agencies. We also have a district-wide safety consultant contract worth about $1 million a year, where we have a consultant who will actually design the off-system safety projects for the local agencies. We will turn the plans over to the local agency for the local agency to construct the project. We've got what we feel is a very good program that can and will benefit the local agency, particularly with the projects that enter the LAP arena. Now, for those of you that are familiar with LAP, yes, LAP comes with strings. And as one former county engineer put it to me years ago, they hated accepting the federal money because the money became tainted at that point, and they had to follow all of the federal requirements. And yes, that is true. But as later on, I will mention the benefits of LAP. If you're designing a project and the project is on the state highway system, you must use DOT standards. It's got to be designed according to the state plans prep manual. Now, if the project is not on the state highway system, Green Book standards are acceptable. With regards to specifications, if the project is on the state highway system, and again, that is a rare instance where we will allow a local agency to construct a project on the state highway system, but if you do, you've got to use full FDOT specifications. Now, on off-system projects, you have options. You can use the DOT specs, or you can use the DOT specifications that were developed for off-system projects, and that's called the Big Four, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes. Or the local agency can use their own specs, but they must be pre-approved by the department. And if you're going to use your own specs, please be mindful that the approval process will take a bit of time. It's not something that you submit today and we approve it tomorrow and you move forward like that. It will take time. And Steve Love is nodding his head. He's happy to hear that one because that's something that he's dealing with now as the LAP project manager. He's bumped his head up against this on several occasions. And would you say 30 days, 60 days minimum? Probably a 60-day minimum to have your local agency specifications approved. So all of that needs to be built into the project schedule. With regards to plans development, we, for projects that are on the state system, just as if it were a DOT project, we will expect the phase submittals to be made at 30%, 60%, 90%, 100%, and final. Now, there have been some instances where the local agency requested to maybe skip the 30%. If that happens, we will submit that request to the district design engineer, and he will make the ultimate decision. He'll take into consideration the complexity of the project and a number of other factors before making his decision. So any variation from that 30, 60, 90, 100 final, the full phase submittals, will need to be requested and approved in advance. Otherwise, the full phase submittal is what's expected. For projects that are off the state highway system, Phase submittals are to be made at 60%, 100%, and final plan. And there are requirements of with regards to what we expect to see in those plans. This was detailed in a previous workshop that we hosted here in District 7, I guess about 3 years ago, and that information is available if anyone needs it. We can get more detail to you. Now, with regards to the certs, yes, we will need an environmental certification, rail, utility, and ultimately a right-of-way certification. And right-of-way certification is done by the District 7 right-of-way manager. It's an involved process, and again, that is something that takes time. And our right-of-way department will review your plans. We'll conduct field reviews to make sure that everything is in accordance with the Federal Relocation Act. Excuse me again. The local agency, again, will need to develop the specifications as mentioned on the previous slide, and I'll touch on that in a few minutes on the next slide as well. And they'll also need to develop an engineer's estimate, and that engineer's estimate will need to be submitted to the department along with each phase submittal. We've had instances where the local agency failed to provide that updated engineer's estimate at each phase submittal, and there was a surprise ending, and it wasn't a happy ending because the local agency was under the impression that they would submit their plans and a new estimate just as they were ready to go out to bid, and we didn't have the money to fund their increase, and they ended up having to fund that increase themselves. So the surprise was really on the local agency. We don't like those situations any more than the local agency would. So we try to avoid those, and so that's why it's incumbent upon the local agency to submit a fresh engineer's estimate along with each phase submittal. For projects that are not on the state highway system, to assist, at one point there was a considerable amount of concern with the fact that the locals were at a loss with regards to what to use in their spec packages. Of course, the local agency wanted to use their own spec packages, and it created some problems because it did not line up with the state or federal requirements. So the department developed the Big Four, which are specifications as we call LACE here in District 7. Landscaping, asphalt, concrete, and earthwork. Those specifications were developed, and the local agency can use those specifications in developing their project. They can use, the local agency can use their own construction method and material specs, except for the Big Four. In other words, if the local agency is using the Big Four, they cannot use their own material specs. It's an either-or situation, and if the local agency decides they want to use their own material specifications, then they would need to submit that specification package to the DOT for review, and that's the 60-day time turnaround period minimum that is to be expected. Any modifications to the spec package, they are allowed, but again, they must be approved by the department, and you can blow your schedule there. You can really blow your schedule there, and we strongly recommend use of the Big Four or LACE. The project schedule. There will be a future, in fact, I believe it's next week, there will be much more detail on building the project schedule for LAP projects. And the first area of emphasis, that project schedule must be reasonable and it must be achievable. It can't be something that's thrown together at the last minute, because if that project schedule is blown, it can result in the loss of federal funding. It's not just a matter of DOT getting a black eye. It's also a matter of the local agency having the funding pulled. And what I have listed here is the major project milestones for LAP projects. Now, I've included items like consultant selection date and the phase submittals, but if, of course, if the local agency is designing the project themselves and you know, they're selecting their own consultant, that consultant selection date will not apply. The phase submittals will still be needed because we will have to review and approve all of your plans, regardless of whether it's on the state highway system or off the state highway system, before giving you the green light to move forward from design into the next phase of the project, you know, before moving on to the construction phase. So dates will need to be developed for that function. Right-of-way mapping, the certification of the right-of-way, the advertisement date, letting and award date, begin construction date, and construction completion dates. Those are just some of the milestones that will need to be considered and made a part of the construction schedule or the project schedule. And again, I cannot say it loudly enough, that's why I've listed it in big red letters there. Failure to meet the project schedule can result in the loss of federal funding. And that damages everybody. That damages the traveling public, our citizens who we are trying to protect and preserve, and it hurts the local agency as well as the department. So we will work with you as best we can to avoid these situations, but they do happen sometimes, and sometimes it's beyond our control. We've had projects here, safety projects here in District 7, where the project was dropped by the local agency before we were able to encumber the funds and receive the federal authorization. And there were reasons for that. Again, sometimes it's beyond our control, but if you start having issues on safety projects, on LAP projects, please let us know, and we can see what we can work out. Earlier, I mentioned the LAP checklist process. And again, this came about after basically after we went to LAP jail in September of 2005. Well, in July of 2005, and we escaped in September. We now have 3 checklists that are required if the project is to move forward. We have the operational procedures checklist, which is, for those of you that are familiar with LAP, it's called the administrative checklist. We also have and this is the newest one, the consultant acquisition checklist. And on this, there was a concern that some of the local agencies were not acquiring consultants, design consultant, professional services consultants, in the manner consistent with the federal and state requirements. So this consultant acquisition checklist was developed. And the construction contract document checklist is the old LAP construction checklist, and it needs to mesh and be integrated along with the draft bid document that would be submitted by the local agency to the department for review. Now, once those checklists are developed, they will need to be certified by the local agency and certified and attested to by the district LAP administrator. That next bullet there, verified by the statewide LAP administrator, that can be stricken because that's no longer a requirement. The state LAP administrator will no longer be involved in this process. The certification will be carried out at the district level. So this will take a little bit of time out of the schedule time frame. But the certification process, it often goes back and forth because we will make comments to the local agency. The local agency will need to revise their bid document and get it back to us, and we'll review it again, and until we've hashed everything out. So again, the review and certification by the district LAP administrator, it's not a quick, fast, and in a hurry thing either. Now, once everything is certified and verified, it'll be reviewed by the Federal Management Office, Federal Aid Management Office, which is in Tallahassee. And once they've signed off on it, That package will be submitted to Federal Highway, and the federal authorization to spend those federal dollars will be requested. Bid and award. We will issue a couple of notice to proceed to the local agency once the funds are programmed and approved. Once the funds are programmed and approved, we will issue an advertisement notice to proceed, and that'll be done in conjunction with the execution of the LAP agreement. Now, once that LAP agreement is is executed, we will issue the advertisement notice to proceed, and the local agency can advertise the project, and according to the federal regulations, you've got to advertise for construction for a minimum of 21 days. That construction contract that is executed, it must contain DBE goals, and you've got to follow the DBE goals. We have some local agencies that would like to use their own goals, and they have mandates in there, but you must follow the DOT goals, because it is possible for you to use your own goals or mandates, but you would need approval for that. And to date, to my knowledge, there's not been a single local agency in the state of Florida that submitted and had approved their own DBE mandates or goals. And in the state of Florida, DBE is a goal, it's not a mandate. And so since that happened several years ago, since it became a goal, and I think the current goal is 8.65%, 8.60%. Thanks, Steve. We've met that. We've met that goal overall as a department, not just on LAP projects, but overall, because the feds will look at the entire DBE percentage from the state of Florida, and it's all inclusive, including LAP projects. Once the local agency has executed a contract, and before they execute the contract, and the bids are received, those bids will need to be reviewed by the local agency, and we ask that they assemble a bid tabulation document, which is basically a comparison of the bids provided by the contractors that went after the project. You must select the lowest, the low bid, the responsive low bidder. That didn't come out easy. But we will review your bid tabs, and if we find everything in order, we'll issue a concurrence of award for the construction contract. Now, there are some instances where, for whatever reason, the low bidder is disqualified and the bid goes to the second low bidder in that case. But there must be compelling reasons. There's got to be good, solid reasons for that to occur. Supplemental agreement to meet the award. There are instances where all of the bids come in above the cost estimate and the amount programmed in our work program and authorized by Federal Highway. In those instances, depending on the reason for the project cost increase, and also depending upon the availability of federal funds, the agreement may be adjusted to meet the necessary award amount. Now again, this is a District 7 policy to make that adjustment. There are other districts, and I can't speak for them, that do not do a supplemental agreement to meet the award. In those instances, it is solely the responsibility of the local agency to provide funds to get up to the project award amount. And again, everything that for the most part, what I'm talking about today is from the District 7 perspective. I believe there are other 8 local agencies in other districts that are tuned in. And again, this is from the District 7 perspective. Each of the LAP programs in the districts are run differently, and it's good to have that latitude and flexibility. However, what we're talking about today is strictly from the District 7 perspective. Now, once the department has issued concurrence in the award of the contract, we'll issue another notice to proceed letter. And then the local agency is free to take off and go forth and do good things. Go forth, live long and prosper. We will issue a letter. Then it's up to the local agency to hold a project kickoff meeting with the winning contractor. Now, a DOT representative can be at that meeting, in most cases will be at that meeting. Could be the FDOT LAP project manager, but also at this stage, we will bring on board a department LAP construction project manager. And this will be a construction expert who will work with the local agency in moving the project through the construction process. Construction under LAP. As I mentioned, there's a construction project manager. Now, that construction project manager will provide periodic inspections and field visits to the site. He'll meet with local agency staff and the contractor's employees. They will be doing verifications on DBE and EEO requirements. And once we receive invoices from the local agencies, it's that construction project manager's responsibility to take that invoice and look at what's on the ground, and he will make an assessment as to whether or not what's on the ground reasonably matches the payment request. There are times when the payment request may not meet, may not mesh well with what's on the ground. And in those cases, explanations will be needed, or the cost will, the reimbursement cost requested will be denied. Now, if the project cost increases, again, during construction, we maintain close coordination with the local agencies to try and handle supplemental agreements and project cost increases. It's not an automatic. If the cost increases, and again, we may not have sufficient funds to fund the increase, then it is the local agency's responsibility to come up with the additional funding for that project. And all of that is included in the LAP agreement that the local agency executes with the department. There are requirements of projects on the state highway system, as mentioned earlier, and we, through our construction inspectors, construction project manager, we will make sure that these requirements are adhered to. Again, it is possible to have variances and exceptions on projects, but again, they'll be handled on a case-by-case basis, and they must be approved in advance by the department. Because if the local agency goes ahead and does things that's without our approval, then they pay for it. They will be marked as non-participating items, and reimbursement will not be provided. At the end of the project, there will be a notice of completion from the local agency to the department, at which time our DOT, the DOT construction project manager will perform the final inspection and walkthrough with the local agency. Now, this is very important. Excuse me again. The final inspection is a very important part of this process, as is the project closeout form, because that form will officially close down the project in the federal aid system. Of course, at the time the final inspection is performed, all of the invoices for the project may not yet have been submitted, but that's okay. As long as the date of those charges precedes the closeout, they can and will be reimbursed as long as they're eligible. And that pretty much details the LAP project closeout process. And again, there are other, I'm sure there may be questions, because this is the condensed version of what we go through on this end. And anytime anyone has any questions, there are people here to assist, and just give us a call. More and more we are having audit requirements. First of all, most of you on the engineering side, you don't get involved in what's referred to as the Florida Single Audit Act. The Single Audit Act is a requirement that the local agency, it's a financial document, an accounting type document that each local agency that receives state and or federal funds must complete. Now, it basically looks at expenditures as well as the grants and other funding that comes in from federal agencies, and it's the local agency must complete and have on file a comprehensive annual financial report for each year, for each agency fiscal year. Now, that's not something that, again, that's not something that most of you all will be involved in. Now, what you may be involved in, particularly since we escaped LAP jail, there's been a thorough review by the Office of the Inspector General, which is OIG, and the Auditor General, which is AG. And also, there's an office called the Government Accountability Office, GAO, and that is the investigative arm of Congress. That's on a federal level. But these guys, it's their responsibility to make sure that the federal dollars are being spent prudently, wisely, and not abused. And we've had occasion to meet with this representatives from this office on several occasions. And they are strictly business. They come down, they want to see where their money is going, and the GAO is responsible not only for federal highway funds, but federal transit funds, rail funds that come through the process. And also, more and more, the number of random reviews by the district office and central office has increased. There's been, during my tenure, there were audits of by federal highway and central office where they were looking at federal aid, looking at invoices, looking at the LAMP agreements. Someone has even reviewed the spec packages and the local contract. There is much more scrutiny and review on these LAMP projects. So it's incumbent upon the local agency to keep things in order. It's incumbent upon the district to have a good working relationship, maintain a good working relationship with the local agency. And the end result is it's not designed to make anyone look bad or to make anyone look good, but it's to keep the money flowing and make sure your transportation needs are being met. LAP benefits. Now, this is a big one. The LAP benefits include the fact that the local agency retains more approval authority when developing federally assisted transportation projects. The local agency can save in terms of time and money through their own ability to advertise, award, and manage its own projects. The local agency maintains control over design and implementation of their project. Years ago, there was an agency in Pinellas County that was not LAP certified, but they wanted, these were, I think, back during the days of congestion mitigation and air quality projects. They had 3 CMAQ projects, and CMAQ at that time required a local match, and the match was, just say, 10%. The local agency estimated the projects at 2 at $50,000 and 1 at $100,000. So they were, okay, well, $5,000, $5,000, and $10,000 would be their local commitment. And it was a small city. It was a small city. But the department was designing the project for the locals. There was no real review process at this time. And when we got through designing it, one of the $50,000 projects became a $75,000 project. The other one became a $100,000 project. And the $100,000 project became a $175,000 project, which meant that the local agency contribution had more than doubled. And the local agency argued vehemently against it, and in the end, it boiled down to what DOT does. And as the local agency said, all we wanted was a Volkswagen, but you're trying to force us into a Cadillac. And the answer was, okay, you become LATSA certified. In the future, you design your own projects. That way, you have more control. If the projects are not on the state highway system, they do not have to be designed to DOT standards and built to DOT specs. But this was years ago, and I remember another entity that wanted to build a wooden bridge on a trail. Well, DOT did not have a spec for a wooden bridge. So we built what we built, and in the end, it was a massive concrete structure over a stream that could stand up to a Sherman tank. It was not what the local agency wanted, but that was the only type of bridge that we had specifications to build. And again, that was years ago, but these are the type of benefits that can occur from using LAP. And at the end of the day, it's free money. It's not a loan, but it's free money. And particularly in this era when we've had so much economic downturn, there's been staff lost who cannot use free money. I think everybody can use free money, but it's up to the local agency to come after this federal safety money that's out here. And you guys are very fortunate here in District 7, because what Peter Shue and his staff have done here in District 7 has been cited as a best practice nationwide and definitely in the state of Florida. And more of the districts are starting to step up to the plate and try to, and this makes me feel good to say it, be like District 7. And I know it may not be to the same degree as what Peter has accomplished here, but they want to get the money to the local agencies because Peter, is it 46 or 48% of all accidents are occurring off the state highway system? 48% of all accidents are occurring off the state highway system. But a recent analysis of funding indicates that between 1 and 9% of the available federal dollars are going to local agencies. And as I made a statement yesterday in talking to someone, it's like winning the lottery, but you cannot win the lottery if you don't play. You've got to submit your applications on the DOT, on the District 7 Safety Summit website. We've tried to simplify things by going to this online application process. We assist the local agency by providing consultant support. It can cost you nothing to have your safety projects designed. If you're short on staff, we can help there. There's been an excellent team of safety experts assembled here in District 7 to assist you. So this program is in place, and I think it's in everybody's best interest to pursue it. Now, if anyone has any questions, this is the time for it.
Larry, there is one question in the chat that has come through that is regarding LED lights. So lighting projects were mentioned in the presentation. Does this include LED street lighting and all associated equipment, such as solar panels, batteries, and cabinets?
We've got Mr. Peter Shue here in the room. He's joined us, so we'll let Peter handle that one.
These street lights, we don't have a statewide guideline or federal guideline yet, so we are working on this one. This is one of my targets to address the LED street light in year 2014. Just be patient.
That is the only question that I have in the chat, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to type it into the chat or raise your flag and I can answer you.
Well, we see a question from Keith Crawford, what is the minimum dollar amount considered? What's considered a minimum amount to use LAP and make it worthwhile? We realize LAP can and is a cumbersome process, but again, my personal thoughts on it, it's paperwork. You do paperwork, you get free money. But I've also talked to some of the local agencies who felt like their contractors on a small dollar project were not willing to jump through the hoops and provide the paperwork. So I tried to pin our district construction engineer down several years ago and get him to give me a threshold amount. And we basically played the high-low game that they used to do on The Price is Right. And we came up with a number of around $100,000. Now,
we had them as low as 38.
Oh, yeah. And when we have those, Iris Riggs, who formerly worked in our work program office, mentioned that we've had them as low as $38,000. But at that point, we don't think you're getting the bang for your buck. And it's in the local agencies. The contractors like it better when you've got a project over $100,000. It's more palatable to the contractors. But you also have another option. If you have projects within a local jurisdiction, and there is the possibility of being able to bundle those projects together. Just say if you have 3 projects and each one is worth $50,000, they have a similar scope, they're in the same geographic area, falling under the jurisdiction of the same local agency, it makes sense to bundle those 3 projects together, come up with one contract for $150,000 and let it that way. That makes it a whole lot easier. Okay. Apparently,
Dennis.
Okay.
Yeah, Dennis, you are unmuted. You said that you have a statement about funding that you would like to add to the conversation.
Am I still muted? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. What I wanted to mention was, good job, Larry, number one. Number two is, just so everybody that's on this webinar understands this regarding invoicing and funding. Once you get the federal authorization to go ahead and proceed with the project, and you get the notice to proceed for construction or whatever, and you can start billing expenses toward the project, they are submitted to FDOT and they're reviewed. And just understand that you are getting your payment back through state funds, and it's the department that will take the costs that they've received, the invoicing from you, and they will seek federal reimbursement back from the federal government. And that's how the cycle works. I just wanted to make sure you understood that. It's not that you're going to actually get a check cut from the federal government. And I'm sure some of you realize you don't anyway, but it will come through state funds. And then DOT itself submits a reimbursement for those costs on these any federal-related projects and gets reimbursed. That's done on a monthly basis. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, are there any other questions out there? Thanks, Dennis.
Uh-huh.
I do not see any other questions in the chat. I don't know, Dennis, if you want to remind everybody of the next upcoming session 10, and
well,
we can wrap it up.
The next session will be next Wednesday, January 15th, and it will cover the development of safety and lab project schedule for funding purposes. And Larry touched a little bit on that today, that he was going to go into more detail about that. And so look forward, set your schedule, your calendar for next Wednesday, January 15th, and then we have 2 more remaining sessions for the month. This session, January 22nd, Safety Lab Project Development, and January 29th is Keys to Successful Safety Programs. kind of a wrap-up. And I'll also mention that we are in the process, and we do have, we're trying to finalize the next series of topics that won't begin until February. As of right now, that's our goal, is to start in February. So we will keep you posted on that, and there'll be the next 12 sessions. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I guess this concludes the webinar. I'll stop the recording now, and as always, I wanted to remind everyone that the presentation and video recording will be posted at the www.tampabaytrafficsafety.com webpage. Follow the link there for Safety Academy.